All right, good afternoon to those of you on the East Coast. Good morning to those of you on the West Coast. I'm your host, Brandon Troy, also co creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. Thanks so much for joining us wherever you are watching from. And of course, every Sunday, as of the last couple of weeks, we have to get into Secret Invasion, the final episode. And I won't be alone in talking about and breaking it down this final episode, episode 6. But before I do that, I'm gonna give you guys a quick recap. So let's run the recap. So in this past episode of Secret Invasion, it saw us saw that there was an assault happening on the Fury residence, which saw Vara and Guy become an impressive duo. Gravik provided an ultimatum to Fury to provide the harvest, a vow that we come to learn has amassed the DNA of numerous superpower individuals in the MCU, both hero and villain. And a fugitive, Fury dons his iconic gear, eye patching off for one last stand against Gravik and his remaining forces. So this current episode that we just had this week opens with our making a final preparations to vacate her and Fury's home when she gets a final call of sorts from Fury. Later, Fury is seen arriving at at the New Scrollos hideout, and covertly is able to dispose of the guards there. Meanwhile, and you're going to hear this a lot, but Scroldy tries to convince the president to make an attack on New Scrollos, which is located on foreign soil. And back on New Scrollos, Fury is steadily making his way to Gravik under much duress due to radiation at the hideout. And I'm putting up duress in quotation marks, which will make more sense a little later. Meanwhile, back at the hospital, in caring for the president, we find out that the hospital is under siege as MI6 agent Sonya reaches out to Scroldy to notify him that Fury is on his way to him. As we witness, Secret Service agents being covertly taken out one by one. Back on Scrollos, Fury finally encounters Gravik, which sees the final, which sees, I should say, Gravik recounting all of his grievances one final time before Fury finally relents and hands him the harvest so that Gravik can acquire the said abilities that are in the vow. Elsewhere, it appears that the president has conceded finally to Scrody's recommendations and has sent classified docs to the armed forces to execute a nuking of New Scrollos. Back at the hospital, Sonya is able also to disarm Scrody, allowing Fury, the real one, to appear in front of the president to convince him of the conspiracy that has taken place among his inner circle. Meanwhile, on New Scrollos, as I said, the real Fury is at the hospital. So in a twist, the newly Harvest powered Gravik soon discovers mid fight that the person he is engaged in battle with is none other than Gaia, now also souped up by the super scroll device. After a war of words at the hospital and a war of fists at New Scrollos, Fury and Gaia are able to gain the upper hand, thwarting the nuking of New Scrollos and seeing the demise of Scrolly and Gravik, respectively. Afterwards, Gaia releases Rhodey, Ross, and the other Skrull prisoners who are being impersonated. Also brings us back to the visibly shaken president who announces a war, essentially on all off-world species as enemy combatants. And yeah, I mean, we basically get, some implications of, what's going to be transpiring going forward. We see Gaia, create an alliance with MI6 Sonya, MI6 agent Sonya, and we also see Avara reconnect with Fury by the end of the episode. So that wraps up, what happened in a nutshell of the final episode. But as I said, I'm not going to be alone in talking about what went down in this episode. So I want to introduce each of my co-hosts. First up, good friend of mine. They welcome them back from last week. They provide their talents as a voice actor, but also as a podcaster. It's my pleasure to welcome back onto the show Matt Nesalonic. Let me bring him on. Hold on, Matt. Here we go. What's
Good
going on, sir?
afternoon. How you doing?
Good, good, good. All right. So next up, uh, Also, welcome them back on the show. Accomplished, filmmaker, not only of shorts but also of feature film as well. It is my pleasure to welcome Casimir Nazlowski. Let me bring him on.
Hi.
What's going
What's up,
on,
Brandon?
man?
What's up, Matt?
How you doing?
Yo, good.
All right. So we had quite an episode, Cass, Matt, of this final episode of Secret Invasion. Before I get into kind of like the callbacks and the Easter eggs, can you guys just let me know, what were your initial impressions? Whoever would like to go first.
Go ahead.
Well, first off, I'm a Skrull. Just like letting you guys know that. Just like right now, I know normally there's a lot more like to do and like trickery and
you know what, that makes a lot of
Is
sense.
he? Exactly. But you've been thinking it for a while, and then here I am. But I like this form, so I'm gonna stay in this form. I could do the ears, but I'm just gonna do like see like the little. I've got like the little Skrull.
This is all we have for in the budget, so
that's exactly right. So I'm just trying to respect that, not trying to be a diva.
Cool.
So that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at. Cool. I'm a Skrull.
Matt.
So I'm just gonna say I did not like this episode. I'm just gonna leave that at the beginning there.
That's fine.
And then we can go on from there.
All right, cool. I mean, I have my grievances of what transpired in this episode, and I guess I'll start first in just talking about some of the Easter eggs, and as we're going through those, it'll get into some of my grievances, as I was mentioning, before. So, in terms of like some of the Easter eggs and callbacks, of course, we talked about the harvest and the gathering of the DNA, and some of the names that popped up on there, and it's been mentioned before, like how did they, essentially acquire some of these folks over the course of that time if it's allegedly supposed to be those who were there in the final battle? Because if we know what went down in the final battle, some of those folks weren't there. So I guess we can just have the implication maybe that they got them at some other point in time, and it was just
they ran up on them, and they were just like, "Listen, that battle was oh my god, that was like amazing! Like we killed Thanos, and listen, while you're here, could we just get like a little? Could we just take a little blood,
just a little hair sample?
Sorry." And your name was, remind me, what was it? Oh, that's so cool! Oh my god, I've been wanting to meet you. Okay, we got their DNA. I mean, it's just. It's very funny with like stuff like that. It just invites so many questions. We used to be so able to suspend disbelief, and now you get in a show like this, and you're just like, "But how did you get it?" And you kept it all in one thing, anyway. So,
well, that's what I want to know. They kept it all in the same liquid, so does it just all mixed together?
And how are they compatible? I mean, this has been brought up before, so I'm not going to take credit for it. But like, and it's a good point though, is how are they all compatible together? Because if we're mixing them all together, wouldn't it dilute it or make it not as pure, so to speak, of having all those DNA strands together? So
when they talk about the one thing I couldn't remember is in the beginning of the series, right? And they reveal this machine that turns them into super Skrulls or whatnot. Like, do they talk about how it works? Like, I just don't remember. Were they like, and we need to have the juice?
They don't
put the juice in here.
They didn't have the budget for that either. So
like.
Right.
My implication.
I need an explainer. On it.
My implication is that they somehow like it factors into where they are venue wise of it dealing with radiation in some type of way. Where sometimes that factors in somehow where they're using some type of the device is somehow enhancing what already exists in that location, since we know that it's not like an ideal location for human beings and that Skrulls can survive there.
So most of the DNA is okay, I get it, but Groot has DNA that's compatible with other
again, like they
mix them all up. Let's get them all and just let's stir them all up. It's funny, I noticed in some recap they were saying that like I couldn't remember this, but I guess she or he turns invisible, and that's Ghost's power. And Ghost is, correct me if I'm wrong, but Ghost is the villain in Ant-Man 2.
Yeah.
Quantum phasing.
Yeah. So
and that person did not seem particularly like, oh, you want my DNA? Cool. Like, I'd love to help.
She wasn't in the final battle.
So I just, what a random character. Like, I mean, why not do like an Invisible Girl, Fantastic Four? Oh, we got it from Sue Richard. I mean, I don't know. Just like, do you need the invisibility? Just look, we could go crazy on this.
So there's a couple of things. One, with the invisibility, my guess is the reason why they had to illustrate that power is because in true MCU form, even when they can't make everything 1-in-1 in terms of a match, they'll try to still pay honor to what the source was. So,
right.
You know, if we're going to our comics of like what the Super Scroll was originally supposed to be, it was those powers of the Fantastic Four. So like, in essence, some of those powers are kind of like those powers. So like, you know, Groot is basically Mr. Fantastic, and like Ghost is Invisible Woman, or the Extremis is Human Torch in a way. And I guess whatever the what is it, Cole Obsidian, you know, who was part of the Thanos's group, the what is it, Black Order?
Oh, that's who that was. I kept seeing that name and I was like, who is that? I don't even know that name.
Yeah,
that's funny.
Yeah,
so that's okay. Got it.
So like, I'm picturing that would be.
So they threw some bad guys. They threw some bad guys up in the mix,
right?
Too.
And I mean, he was there, but the only way I can wrap my head around it is that if you have an Avenger, you have Scrody, you know, around for a while, you know, he would have access to a lot of that stuff. You know, he was at the battle, like he was in those various places during the Avenger battles where, you know, he could have snuck around and gathered some of that DNA because he would be there to be able to access it. And if he wasn't, like people would allow him
the idea of collecting DNA at this massive battle. Are you just scraping rocks and hoping?
That's what I'm saying. You're running around and you're like, I mean, here I think to like just to try to take a big step back from it. I mean, I would say that this conversation, as fun as it is for me, I mean, we could spend the whole episode on how does the harvest work exactly and why did they make it? And
I'm gonna get into more.
But I would just say like, that to me unfortunately demonstrates the issue with the series. It's like if we're spending more than 2 minutes talking about
trying to wrap our head around this,
then unfortunately like it just didn't like come together. I mean, I have to say, watching the finale, and a lot of the episodes, my main takeaway was, God, it's so hard to make movies. It's so hard to make TV. It's so hard to make, especially when you're beholden to comics. Like, I just watched it and I just was like, you've got Samuel Jackson, Olivia Colman, Emilia Clarke. You have like a phenomenal cast. Oh, Don Cheadle. Ben Mendelsohn. Oh my God. So look, you got unbelievable cast.
He is amazing.
And you're basically making a spy movie about or a spy show about shapeshifters. I mean, it really should work. And yet it's so hard because to make it like, I kept thinking about, I also was reminded obviously of Andor, right? Andor is so delightful. I mean, it is just a terrific show. And I was trying to think, well, why does Andor work and this doesn't? Because I feel like they're trying to operate, and I mean, this is my opinion, they're trying to operate kind of in the same space. Like, let's take this alien thing and try to make it into a like Cold War thriller kind of.
So how many episodes was Andor?
10. That was 10. And they were hour-longs, right?
This felt rushed. Like there was just a lot of it. So I have a theory that this would have been good as a 2-hour movie. Or a 10 to 12 episode series.
I don't know about 10 to 12. I feel like it could have.
I can see that.
At least I do agree with you that it should have been longer because I feel like momentum-wise, like it had a decent enough pace. Within like the first couple of episodes, I want to say between like 1 to 4. I'll give it as far as 4.
And the last 2, there was so much exposition.
And then by episode 5, it felt like they were like, okay, we have to hurry up and you have to knock out all of these story beats.
Fight, 10-minute exposition scene. Fight. You know, again, if it was a 2-hour movie, they could have cut a lot of the exposition, quick storytelling, great action pieces, and I don't think people would have gotten bored with it.
Yeah, I feel like I totally agree. I really wanted it to work like so badly. I love all these actors. I love Sam Jackson. I was like, oh, Sam Jackson finally going to get like a real centerpiece show. It's going to be, where he's at. It's going to be just like terrific. It has, I mean, and it has things on paper that are really interesting. His relationship, his kind of, you know, him dealing with like the aftermath of the blip. I mean, there's so many things that should really make sense and work. And then, but then there's like kind of stuff mixed up in the core of the show. I mean, even like at the end when I mean, it's not him, it's Gaia pretending to be him. And she's talking to Gravik, and he's saying, he's like accusing Nick Fury of like, you know, when I had to go out there and assassinate humans,
I killed a little bit of myself every single time. Yeah.
Like that idea is like half good, like where you're like, right, oh, that's so rude. That's terrible that he made you do that and it made you crazy. But now your answer is, I'm going to kill millions of humans. Like,
right.
It just doesn't quite like add up. And
there could have been real emotional beats for Samuel L. Jackson to like actually dig into. And I don't think they gave him the time to. Like, you know, that whole blip thing. And then 2 seconds later, you're on to the next topic.
And I would just say, like, to add to everything you guys said, and then I'm going to try to get through more of the stuff, because there's even more that I want to get into and dig into, is just the idea, the reason why it was kind of jarring for me is, and I mentioned this to you last week, Matt, is in the last episode, you know, he had that, you know, he had his right-hand guy, and he, like, took him out, like, within a couple of seconds, and they were, like, they were supposed to be tight, and I was like, what? Like, you just, like, offed him,
it
like,
was an unearned change.
The episode. Like that
totally
didn't like connect. Like,
well, they had the dude with the hat, the guy with the hat who's like hanging around. He's like the new guy. And you're like, okay, they're setting him up for some amazing this guy is going to be very important. I'm watching like every episode. Okay,
like what
this guy's going to be so important. And then he's like, rebellion, dead.
Yeah,
and you're just like, no,
another unearned.
I mean, so there must be some rush budget thing that really made it. It's just too bad because it
all felt rushed. It all felt rushed to me.
So so I want to say, like, continuing on through like some of those callbacks, there were some other ones that I kind of found fascinating. Where if we're talking about like legacy Marvel like movies, is I don't know how you guys felt about it, but like the scene with the president towards the end gave me deja vu of the president scene at the end of X2, where like you kind of have a similar situation where like the president kind of is giving an ultimatum of like how we're going to move forward as a nation, and based off of the circumstances that have just transpired. You know, in the case of X2, we had it with the mutants or the mutant problem, but in here we have it with, you know, all these off-world species, as he said. So like that part was interesting, where I don't know if that was purposeful, but it at least gave me the feel of that scene in that film. And I was gonna say,
speaking of Easter eggs, I loved when Dolph Lundgren showed up as the Punisher in that last scene there. That didn't actually happen. Sorry.
For sure.
I know.
For sure.
Would have been good. Yeah. No, that, I mean, the president, that switch is very quick. Like, so this guy who, like, he's so upset, he's like, we must kill all aliens. I mean, that seems sort of very out of sync with how the world has been set up and how he's been.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like you could take a step towards it. Also, it's just funny, like montage wise, then it's like, here's the Prime Minister of England or whatever that woman was. Was she like the Prime Minister? I forget who was a Skrull.
10 Downing Street or something. Yeah.
Right. She's like, you know, she got assassinated. Whatever. Quick news montage. No big deal.
What you just said, the president's change was such an unearned, quick. He went from like listening to Fury talk and Olivia talk, and they saved him from the Skrulls, but some are good. Next scene, kill them all. What? What? Genocide is good. No.
They should have set him up, actually. I mean, I'm seeing a comment from some saying, unfortunately, the president's reaction is
believable. Hi, Michael.
If they had set him up like he was a kind of
Trump, it had to be a build, but it didn't seem like it was so drastic. And it goes back to what we were talking about of the amount of space to tell that story. Like,
if they just gave him a red hat
here, and he, eventually got to that point, then it makes sense. But no.
Yeah. I know.
But like in talking about some of the themes, I was trying to see, because I did like a ton of notes, but I'm trying to remember if there was something. Oh, one other thing that was interesting is what they did with, I don't know if you guys noticed this, but like they had a through line with the security guard that Fury had injured all those episodes ago.
Yeah.
So he kept popping up in episodes.
Is that the hand?
Yeah, he kept popping up in episodes. So like it would like in this episode that he got emasculated by like the president, where he was like, "Just give me the gun." Like, I don't trust you to save me. He just took it from him in the hospital.
There's a lot of things like that where I'm like, did it get recut? Because it's like, was that guy supposed to be important? And then he ends up. They're all Skrulls, right? All the guards that are with Don
See, I didn't get that impression. I didn't get that impression.
Yeah. Why don't they kill Fury in 5? By the way, right? Wasn't it the end of 5?
Yes, when they all had him lined up there.
And why don't they? I mean, there's a lot of. Unfortunately, that's the other thing. I mean, again, it's like we probably should. There's so many things. Like, why did they keep all the people alive? Like the Rhodes and everybody. Is there a reason that the Skrulls, everyone they're impersonating are down like in these pods, right? Is there a reason that they're kept alive?
Well, my guess is, and this has been brought up, so again, won't take credit, is, and it makes sense, is that the only reason to keep them alive is if there's additional information that they need to kind of gather away from them that they are holding on to.
But don't they get all the from the zappy things in their head?
They do, but I guess the way that they have been like executing or trying to explain it is that they don't get it all at once. Like as they need it, they take it. So if there's something else that's there, then they gather.
So that brings me to a question. Now, how long did they have Rhodey? He was in a hospital gown when he was let out. So does that mean when he originally hurt his legs or lower back, from Civil War, I believe it was?
Yes.
Has he been... So that huge emotional speech when Tony Stark was dying, was that Skrull?
It can't be. I mean, I've heard that that's what's being implied, but I'm not going to read it like that. It can't be that. That doesn't work for me. Hold
on to it. So I'm gonna get through the themes real quick because there is a lot of that. But in talking about themes, and I know we're winding down here, or well, I know for you, Cass, we're winding down.
No,
but
we got time. We got 20 minutes. I still got to talk about
shape-shifting. But there's a lot. There's a lot.
Thoughts about shape-shifting. I need to get into that too.
So with the themes, I guess, and talking about, some of the things that I did find fascinating with thematically, some of the things that they get into are the tactics between Gravik and Fury. Well, not Gravik and Fury, I'm sorry, with Gaia and Fury, where we have a similar thing happening there. And I think, Matt, you were bringing it up no, I think you brought it up, Cass, of whether the secret service agents were human or not. And if we notice, when he's taking out each of those agents, he doesn't kill them, but Gaia does kill the soldiers that are holding are guarding Skrullos. So I found that dynamic interesting where, we're supposed to believe that Gravik is like this, horrible villain, but like, is Gaia really that far off when push comes to shove? Like, under the right circumstances, could she eventually go down that route because she's willing to actually kill her own versus...
Yeah, that's very generous. That's very generous of you to give that much thought. I don't know. I'm curious. That's interesting. Yeah.
Also, is she the most powerful person in the universe now, basically?
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, that's another thing too. I was going to say, additionally, thematically, is going into the relationship with Vara and Fury too, where I like how they have, and I guess it's a combination of thematically, but also the callback as well, is coming back to actually loving a significant other as they are versus, the guys that she had, where, that I know that was a big thing. And it was kind of implied where he didn't really make an answer of whether or not he could love her as a Skrull versus loving her in the guys that she had. But they finally have a through line of that. And I found it interesting because it goes into other things, just societally, if we're talking about, like, if we're saying anything that's like taboo, like interracial marriage, like way back when, or other things where, it might be taboo to, have that type of relationship. So it was really fascinating to have that through line.
I feel like there's a couple things they brought up and they could have, like, they touched on, the the basics of like race relations in the United States, and then they moved on. Like they touched upon a lot of things that needed more weight, and they didn't give it that, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree, because I feel like it was executed way more effectively, and I don't think it gets enough credit. Is Falcon and Winter Soldier talking about the impact of having a Black Captain America versus you know having Steve Rogers? So
totally, no, that's you're absolutely right. It feels like they're setting up those thoughts, and then they don't really dig into it, and then like that ending coda, I agree with you. Like it is moving, and it's certainly. It does bring up those ideas, but it's like, and then credits, like it just is, it's done so quickly. And they spend a lot of time. There's a lot of time between Fury and what was her name? What was the character's name? Bara.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of like back and forth. Like I'm mad at you. No, I'm not. Wait, we are. We're okay. No, we're not. And I feel like that actually is, to your point, that I feel like they should have made decisions like this is okay. This is the reveal. She's this and she's that. And now we're past that. And now we're getting into like exactly what you're saying, the more kind of important, kind of like critical, interesting themes. The kind of like whose side is she on is actually sort of irrelevant to kind of what's interesting about the show. You know, it's like,
and I mean, let's be honest, we all knew that she was going to be on Fury's side. Like, I don't think that there was really any like indication that she was going to like side with Gravik. I don't know. At least for me, it felt like that was never going to be an issue.
So, and that was just another one, in my opinion.
And they dragged it too long of trying to do that.
They did, right. So weird because they're also in a rush. They're in a rush, but then some things they just let it linger forever. You're like, come on.
And I also think they didn't use her well because I think she's a phenomenal actor, and she could have
she's great.
Done a lot more with what they gave her. Her lines just felt like cookie cutter, you know, a little bit of emotional pull, then move on, which is a lot of what the whole series felt like for me.
For sure.
Yeah.
So I know each of us were like really, you know, really clawing at the bit to get to this, so we're going to get to theories and what ifs. You already went into it, so Matt, I'm going to punt it over to you. I know you were talking about like the most powerful Avenger, so like
are we going to see her again? Is she, I mean, she's got the powers of every single Avenger that they somehow got, including Danvers, who is basically the Superman of the Marvel universe, right? So, you know, what is she going to be used for, and who could stop her, or like who could be an actual villain for her because she's ultra uber powerful?
Yeah.
No, I agree. I guess they very much have ridden themselves in a hole where like it'll be interesting to see if how they address that. One way that I picture they may try to do it, because Marvel sometimes, MCU sometimes does this. If they find something doesn't work, they'll try to retcon it some way and weave around it. So maybe they'll figure out a way where, because she's a person of her people, you know, she'll share her powers and get rid of some of her powers and hand it off to some of the other Skrulls that are among her people. So
or they'll just do what they did with Danvers and be like, she's off planet now.
Yeah, I got to run this errand in the Andromeda Galaxy. I'll be back in like 10 years. Wait, my question: why not just make it temporary? I mean, why do we need these powers to be permanent? Like for all
it wears off.
Like that's what I'm saying. It wears off. You use it, and now you go do the thing. You try to kill the president or whatever. Then, my power they wore off, and now I have to go get another, you know, shock of it, basically. So I feel like that to me seems like what the fix should have been. If it's not, I feel like that would be the way to fix it for her. Yeah. But I just imagine they won't mention her. I just have a feeling.
That's what I'm afraid of. Like,
but that's always going to be there. It's always going to be lingering there. It's kind of a similar thing with the frozen Celestial that
in the ocean.
So I hear it will be addressed in the new Captain America movie, but up until this point had never been addressed.
This thing sitting out of there in the South Pacific Ocean that no one's talked about.
Yeah.
Giant hand and face sticking out of the ocean.
But aren't the Skrulls supposed to be a major part of some Avengers movie coming up? Isn't there some Avengers? Like, is Secret Wars? Is that the same? Is that connected, or is that a totally different?
Secret Wars is more like, you know, multiversal with various versions of different heroes, and they're like off world somewhere, and then you have like universes colliding, and then at some point like it has to come to like ahead where all of them have to battle against, if I recall, it's the Beyonder. But like in the more that's like the older story. The more
Battle World
recent one, it was actually against Doom, but we haven't even gotten Doom yet, so they may try to switch that around somehow.
Right. Okay. Got it. All right. So Skrulls could be part of things going forward, or like not.
It could be. One thing that has been brought out there, that has been making rounds is that even though it's called Secret Invasion and it's supposed to, wrap things up, that maybe it's just the beginning, and that we still have some Skrulls out there that are still characters like Fontaine or whatever her name is.
Julie Louis Dreyfus.
Yeah, like perhaps she's a Skrull. Like, maybe that explains why she's seeming to trying to create this Dark Avengers team that will probably be assembled with that'll be adapted as the what is it, the for Ross, the Thunderbolts.
Yeah.
So,
right.
Speaking of Ross,
or what's her name from speaking of Falcon and Winter Soldier, the who was a love interest of Steve Rogers, like she's been acting strangely, so maybe she's a Skrull, like who was the arms dealer.
yeah, the blonde lady.
Yeah. So
I mean, it really, like, that to me, again, this is, to me, is like what I wish this show had been way more about, which is, I mean, I know that the show is about like who's a Skrull, who's not a Skrull, but all the reveals are very kind of slow and kind of like really, they're not urgent, and like it made me think of the movie The Thing.
Yeah.
Right. And The Thing is like, such a wonderful movie, and
favorite movie.
It's all like, who can you trust? Like, I mean, it almost gets, you're like you want to, it has to be like a real kind of mind fuck. And I wish the show had been more of a mind fuck. I feel like it was very like it just didn't have a mood, like the mood of The Thing, where everyone's just freaking out, like, are you a Skrull? Are you a Skrull? Like, I feel like it
didn't have that body horror element.
Yeah, no. I had so many questions about shapeshifting too. Everyone's so upset about finding a home. I'm like, but you could also just be anyone you want. It seems at any time you want. It is also a funny thing, like choosing to be like a certain actor. Why can they not choose like a younger? I'm going to be a more athletic, fit kind of person. I don't know. Like, it was this was me going off on shapeshifting tangents. Maybe I missed the rules. Maybe the rules are they have to look like certain.
They did not,
but that was the stuff I wanted to get into, that body horror kind of.
I was going to say, the thing that's always bothered me, and this is even up through Captain Marvel, that is never been like addressed, and this is a small thing, but it's a major thing, is the Skrulls can shapeshift, but their clothes can shapeshift too. Like, if they're wearing some type of outfit and it switches directly into the outfit of something else, like it doesn't fit. I can see if like you already had the outfit on, but I guess it would look weird, like getting the case of Gaia, where like Samuel Jackson is so much taller than she is, so like it would look like she had like like a cape on or something if she switched back to her regular forms. I don't know.
I wonder if part of the issue was like they made it ultimately like the stakes so high. It's like it's all about trying to start,
and they weren't able to reach it.
Yeah, and I feel like this show would have been so much better if it literally starts and there's just like someone almost by accident, like some political person is revealed to be a Skrull, and then it just starts like a panic, and then it's like all about like kind of surfing and figuring out that little panic. You don't even know what the goal is. Maybe there is no goal. They're just infiltrating because they're trying to position themselves for something later.
See, that sounds more like a Twilight Zone episode where you start questioning your neighbor, and it's that panic.
Yeah. Like I don't know.
Maybe that's my preference. It's all subjective. I mean, maybe some people want the stakes, and maybe I want the more that Twilight Zone feeling. Like that's
question your neighbor, question your
wife,
question your kids. Who's a Skrull?
Yeah, I mean, they have some of it, so clearly it was on their minds too.
I will raise another question to you guys, and this is another like theory, because I've thought about this too, and maybe I'm just overthinking it. That's possible too. Is after we have the the folks that were imprisoned by the Skrulls, and they're making their way out of the facility. That isn't like the most ideal place for humans to be. And for some of them,
they would have been radioactive area.
Yeah, for some of them, they would have been there for a while. In the case of Rhodey, so like, do you think that we're actually going to get any implication of that, of like the repercussions of that with some
they all come down with leukemia in the next month or two?
Yeah, like maybe with Rhodey, it gets addressed in Armor War.
You mean if the radiation stuff?
I feel like we're not going to.
Wow. Yeah, that's a good. Unlikely.
Yeah,
right.
That's a really deep thing.
They make a big deal about Gaia. They make a big deal about Gaia. And he's like sick, right? When he gets there, he's all like, the radiation has knocked me out, right? Isn't that what's happening? She's pretending to be
iodine pills
to the radiation. So in the radiation's right. So in theory, it's like very potent. But yeah, you're right. Oh my god! I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, they should have just killed those people. I gotta, it just bums me out because I just, I love Don Cheadle. I hate seeing him in that situation. Like, it just bothers me that he's kind of petulant the whole show. He's this Skrull who's like kind of whiny, and I'm like, that's so why? That's just so undervaluing Don Cheadle. Like, Don Cheadle should have, I don't know, he should have escaped and become like joined forces with Fury, or some, I don't know, like, and then it's like Don Cheadle versus Don Cheadle. I want that scene. That's the scene they should.
So another question was, Ross, was he a Skrull all during the Wakanda stuff?
So here's my thought. I thought of this. Maybe
so that's a real long game.
I don't know if either of you have seen Wakanda Forever. I'm assuming both of you have.
Yeah,
so maybe in that scene at the end where he gets saved by Okoye, that it's not Okoye and it's actually a Skrull, because that would be the only person that he would trust to actually break him out. And I don't think Okoye would do that based on like the dynamic of like the different nations of like saving a fugitive even under those circumstances. So I was thinking of that, and I was like, weird, that could have happened. I think he's been fine this entire time, and he's been a part of like, been himself up until that point, and that's when like Okoye wasn't Okoye when she saved him, and it was actually a Skrull.
But didn't she have the armor when she ripped the van apart? So
she did, but remember,
the Skrull would have had to get the armor.
Yeah, but remember, we've had Skrulls that have been around and been a part of S.H.I.E.L.D. S.H.I.E.L.D. knew about Wakanda for years. So, like, they could have had someone infiltrate that and figure that out.
That's getting deep long game there.
Yeah, why? It's like, why do they need that guy more than anything? It just seems like weird. They target weird people. They're really...
The leaders I get, but Ross and Rhodey, not so much.
No, hold on. Also, in the first one, don't they they pretend to be Nick Fury, right? I mean,
for a moment, Gravik.
But so they can be someone without, I don't know, just see, there's so many, I just feel like I just want to keep exploring all the plot holes, unfortunately.
So why did they get Rhodey and not the president? That would have made things so much easier.
Right. If you can get Rhodey, who actually is like seems like a much harder to get in a way than the president. Like,
and Rhodey can be alone with the president, and often is for advisory sessions. So get him then.
Why not just kill the president and then say, "Yo, the Russians did it,"
right?
Or something. I mean,
convoluted as hell.
I feel bad. That's what I'm saying. It's so hard. It's so hard to make a show like this. There's so many moving parts. And they're probably beholden to all the Marvel plot that's come before. And it's just so hard. But you just I want Don Cheadle versus Don Cheadle. I want Nick Fury doing cool stuff. I don't know. I just, darn it all to heck.
I feel like the one thing that annoyed me the most is, I get the thing they were pulling with Fury was, this is personal. I'm not calling in any help.
Oh, that's,
because this is, but we almost had World War III where we almost nuked the Russians. Maybe call in help.
Yeah, that seems very bad strategy. That's
I guess tough. The thing that irritated me the most is, and this is just like a nitpick thing, but it is what it is the final battle with Gravik and with Gaia. where I guess she like blasted him through the chest, and I'm like, okay, doesn't he have?
Didn't he heal from that before?
That's what I'm saying. Doesn't he have extremis? Like, and he has the DNA of Thanos and all these other characters that can withstand. Also,
if you're a shapeshift, they should have laid out some rules of shapeshifting, like because I remember I read like a Legion of Superheroes comic, like man, the longest time I loved it. I forget the guy who was the shapeshifter in that, but he at one point someone had told he got like shot. He got shot in the chest, and he survived it. And he said someone had told him like, "Oh, since you're a shapeshifter, why don't you put your heart like
in your foot,
in your knee, like, and keep it." It was something like you can, that you shouldn't be. If you're a shapeshifter, you shouldn't be able to be killed in the most.
I was going to ask, if you're a shapeshifter, can you move your organs around?
I would think so. I guess, but maybe you have to make them work the right way. Like maybe you move them around.
If you shapeshift into a bigger person, can you move them outwards?
Yeah, and can you just do it quickly? Like, oh, someone's going to shoot me.
And now that you say that, oh, okay, we have an answer out here. Okay, Michael, Chameleon Boy.
Oh, Chameleon Boy. Yeah, that's man, great character. Great character.
Thanks, sir.
Yeah, appreciate it.
But no,
none of these questions are answered, or they're not going to be answered. That bothers me.
So much fun. That's I'd like to see the body horror version, of this show. I bet that would be a lot of fun. Smaller stakes, more like The Thing. Put them in some like isolated
space. Yeah,
I know we had.
And they could have still had the the public figures. Maybe it was at a retreat or something.
Exactly. Oh, that would be like a real time thing.
You had all these like world figures there, but it was at a retreat because they go to work. They go to retreats all the time.
Yeah.
And then the danger was, once whatever happened there, they went back to their own nations afterwards. So you had
the G20.
They got writing it right now.
I would love to see. I would love to see like a 6 or 8 episode. I know we had What If, but I would love to see a series kind of like the Twilight Zone. Something, again, I bring that up, but that kind of more cerebral horror and suspense based in the Marvel universe, and you could so easily do that with Skrulls.
Yeah, it's really true. Twilight Zone, Marvel. That'd be a good mashup of tones.
It really would.
Well, Mr. Nikowski, I know you have a heart out. So before we wrap up here, I know we want to go over a couple other things, but I know, like I said, you have a heart out. So can you tell folks where they can find you, sir?
Oh my goodness. You can find, let's see, I'm on some social media. You could go see my movie, The Outside Story. It's on Hulu. Check it out. And also short horror film that I wrote that my friend Nikki Taylor Roberts directed. That is also on Hulu and in the festival circuit right now. And that's called Go to Bed Raymond, part of Bite Size Halloween. So yeah, check all that stuff out.
Sweet. Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for hopping on, man. Matt, if you want to stay on a little longer, feel free.
All right.
But Cass, thank you so much, man.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Matt. Nice to meet you.
Take care, man.
Take it easy, Brandon. Thank you.
Later. All right. So there were a couple of other things that I did want to dive into, just briefly with some of the theories. And one thing that was interesting is just the idea of how shaken, like, and this is testament to the acting, he's playing the president, how like visibly shaken like he was in giving that speech, even though it was a drastic turn. I mean, who knows, maybe there was, like you were saying, that there was more footage on the cutting room floor where it showed that progression of him getting there. But it still provides an interesting setup for what we know is coming down the line. So of how extreme he is.
It felt like a season 8 Game of Thrones turn. It was just, we're doing this. Why? Okay. I either the guy was so completely unaware about the whole Skrull thing. I mean, he knew about the Skrulls, so why was he so shaken? He knew they could be anywhere, right?
You would assume so, yes.
You would assume so. He is the president. He has, unless Rhodey was
been debriefed, or unless that, a lot of times when you have that
one advisor,
power, maybe that isn't something that's debriefed to them. Maybe it just is that classified where it is even kept from him. I don't know. Maybe.
I mean, he had a run-in with Fury earlier in the series, right?
Yeah.
So the only way that he could be that oblivious, that he's so shaken, is that if Scrody was blocking all Skrull information getting to him.
The intel, yeah. Could
maybe, but we didn't see that.
It could be. So I mean, they were kind of on the nose with it, but maybe you have another idea. I had some ideas on it where, you know, Fury was talking about you being like this very one-term president type of stuff that you're doing there was really on the nose, but
a little bit.
where there's some other things that or things that you have thought about that could, outside of that obvious statement, that could transition to what we have with Ross, what we know about Ross and what's happening with him in his next appearance with General Ross.
I don't know, man. So the Ross Skrull was killed in the first episode, right?
Yeah. So I'm thinking of Thunderbolt Ross.
Oh. Yeah, I'm not sure on that one.
Like, I had some time to think about it, and I guess one thing that has been that I've thought about is perhaps with how militant, I guess, the country ends up becoming as a result of the events of Secret Invasion, is maybe the lesser of the two evils is Thunderbolt Ross. And the only reason being, the only way that he's able to kind of present himself as someone who's different, because when I'm thinking about it, I'm like, he's not that far off from Thunderbolt Ross. Like, I feel like Thunderbolt Ross would feel the same way, where he's like, you know, kill all, like, you know.
But that's not what we've seen of Ross in the movies, though.
Well,
I don't see Ross making that switch. You know what I mean?
I don't know. Like, I can see him making that switch, where the only thing that he seems to be keen on is gathering, just like we saw over the course of this series, is accessing the powers of, you know, superpowered individuals and being able to use it, you know, for his own, you know, uses. When it's not, you know, used towards his own uses, then, you know, a lot of times we've seen it demonstrated that he looks at that as a threat, and a lot of times has kind of gone along with it, but is more into the idea of having control over it versus being, you know, in alignment with it or working, you know, with those types of individuals. So I'm thinking, like, in terms of maybe his stance when he, you know, is running as president, is the only thing that allows him to kind of act as, like I said, as the lesser of two evils, because I think they are going to align on certain issues, is the fact that he'll have a quote unquote Avengers team with the Thunderbolts that he'll present as his team, as his heroes,
right?
As his, like, twisted sense of heroes that will, since the Avengers at this point are disbanded and haven't really come together yet, the new team, that people are going to side, you know, with that, with, you know, with him and his
the B team.
Yeah, with his team, because it's a team. You know, we're used to us having a team. We have a team. He has a team. So, like, we're going to support, you know, Thunderbolt Ross versus someone who's just like, open war on everyone.
You know, it'd be interesting. Something I was thinking about. So we now have a war on every alien, which includes Carol Danvers and, you know,
which includes
Groot, all Batista, you know, all the rest of them.
But it also includes all Asgardians too. They're on Earth too.
So, you know, this almost sounds like a, you know, complete ban on all mutants.
It does. Yeah. Yeah.
And I feel like we're going to get them at some point, right?
Right.
Would be a good way to bring that in.
Then that's why I brought up the idea with the radiation thing, is them potentially using that as a backdoor to, you know, if we're thinking of like the mutant gene, a lot of times we're thinking of it being recessive, and maybe
the radiation brought it out.
Radiation activated it, and so if they ever,
so Rhodey's one an Avenger and now a mutant,
right?
I would watch that.
Well, I'm just saying, all the
Ross.
other survivors, they could always retcon it with all those survivors. They end up, having kids, and they end up having the mutant X gene. Like, it was recessive the entire time, but it activated somehow.
I mean, my whole thing is if see, that whole scene pissed me off where Fury was like coughing after being in there for 5 minutes. Yeah. They kept the rest of those people in the pods down there for years,
months, years.
If that was affecting Fury that quickly, they'd be dead.
Yeah.
Their insides would have melted. Radiation would have just...
Yeah. Yeah. So unless they have some type of explainer where they'll...
Is this where we get mutants in the MCU?
Could be.
I would like that. That would be almost a redeeming thing for the series for me.
And it's not unheard of where we have like certain installments in the MCU that they try to retcon it to have it matter when it's been like an installment that, not a lot of people care for. I remember in Endgame they tried to make Thor: The Dark World matter, where a lot of those events they brought back, and it connected to Endgame and was pivotal to Endgame or played a role in Endgame, I can say. So who knows? No, that would be an interesting way to go about it, for sure.
Yeah, it's funny watching this. Made me think about Wakanda with Ross and everything with Rhodey.
Yeah.
So,
and I mean, and speaking of what you were talking about of when it could have possibly happened, and there have been, just like you had indicated, there had been speculation of like, okay, when did it actually happen? All the gown would indicate that it happened in Civil War, but maybe it didn't happen in Civil War. Maybe it happened like right after Endgame. Maybe he was doing another checkup or something and he was caught during that time.
They got him on his colonoscopy. It's just
right. But I would argue this is, for the argument of it being Civil War, because a lot of people have tried to like debunk it of saying like, well, he had, the device that he was wearing, or, I think that, another thing that was brought up is he wouldn't try to, fake his condition under some of the circumstances that he was in. But I'm like, throughout this entire series, the people that were, acting as other characters were faking their condition under dire circumstances. So like, it's completely logical.
I think Michael has a point in the chat.
Yeah. And I mean, the other thing, it could be that. But my guess is it'll be interesting to see which one they go with. But if they do go with Civil War, I feel like it's far enough back where you wouldn't feel cheated, but it's far enough back to where it allows you to reassess some of the events that happened post Civil War.
Again, that whole heartfelt speech he gave when Tony was dying. Yeah,
but okay. So here's my explainer for that. If we're thinking about one of the episodes in Civil War in this series, in Secret Invasion, where we had the scene where they had to go to some official's home or something, and the official was a Skrull. If I recall, the kid, and I could be wrong about this, but they didn't really indicate that, is that the kid wasn't a Skrull, but the father was.
Acted like he loved his
child. And because you have those memories, and to some degree, because you have those memories of, or those emotions of that person, that you're still going to have some sense of connection.
Do we know the kid wasn't a Skrull?
From what I understood, he wasn't. Like, they never gave an indication. He was it was the official, the guy, the father that was a Skrull, but not the kid. So, which made it interesting, which again, another thing they could have really like explored of how close you are or how close you are to that person that you switch from.
This whole series was like Secret Wars, wasted opportunities.
Yes.
Because there were so many cool things they could have touched on.
Yeah, there are a whole bunch of interesting ideas that were brought up, and it was just, wasted. But be that as it may, Matt, always
it's done.
It is done.
You know.
It's always a pleasure, man. Put up your handle.
No. So I'm over at Blue Sky now. You're putting up my Twitter handle still. Okay.
You know, you should go with. You should channel your Janet Jackson. Say it's Matthew, Mr. Neslonic, if you're nasty.
If you're nasty. So I'm Big Dash Matt at Blue Sky. You know, find me there.
Cool beans.
Say hi. You
know. So always, as I said, I want to thank Matt for hopping on. I want to thank Cass for hopping on earlier in the time that we had him. I'm your host, Brandon Choi, host and co-creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. You can find me on Twitter at Brandon Choi ENT, which you see down below. Not Twitter. What am I saying? Twitter on X. There you go, on X.
Don't say X.
Now, I guess. And also Brandon Choi _ENT on Instagram. So that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. Be safe out there and see you soon. Peace.
Bye.